Just reflecting on my past life. Reflecting on my past like an esoteric flashlight. Hey, what can I see? All the bodies that I used to be, all the hobbies I have my cheek to express how much I love to be me. I love to be seen, lead to the tree, some of my leaves to breathe in the sea. My spirit's connecting with chaotic elements. They call me away, so I come for the hell of it. Should've straight pocket course, I'm with the helm of it. To who these will sell it? Hermes is free, I'm flower peddling, powerful rebel. To melt with, what else could I be but church to see? Tribune rounds where I see H-A-S-L-E to see my O. Everyone knows I'm God of the moon, bucked on the storm, I can only know my perspective and roll in the show. Could you see its flow? I go into glow. Road to grow the garden in my soul. Heaven's a goal, so what should I show you? How might is a go-to? Substance spaces used to see the rooms where they get homeschooled. Who to my what as I know? My nothingness on my own. Man of my colors afloat. Simulations with all of my soul. So many situations I have saved. My planet truth is limit equality. My qualities quantity, botany. Triple my tree, trigonometry. My angels be trying and ghosts like isosceles. Ooh, I'm a beast from the east, falling angles in astronomy. Mercury reigning in sovereignty. Communicate ever more consciously. Just against this, cause then ideologies ain't been fitting me. We are back with the Superpower Superhero Podcast. We're just talking about the importance of tripling your communication ability, actually understand what English means, actually get some emotional intelligence, and actually just learn life, basically. And this is real quick. I just wanted to make this statement that nature is created by space, so a space can experience itself, but it's not that a space is nature, but we are supposed to feel like nature, because otherwise what's the point of being alive? You feel me? But it's like there's infinite kinds of nature. So then that's where I would correlate like nature to the soul and then technology to the body. And technology is always meant to make nature make sense, but nature is what always makes technology possible. And that's basically just like the two energies of space. So nature is always like the natural things growing in the environment. But then once you as a space are experiencing that environment, how do you manipulate it to express your vision? You feel me?
Beautiful. I mean, and you just put it up because if you look at the etymology of nature, right, it's natural. It's natural. And if you look at natural is organic. Organic is, organ, energy. Organic is original, orgasm. But we can take it and we can change it around and, we can manipulate it. But then it becomes a byproduct of nature. It no longer is nature in its original natural form. Right.
Because it's already organized by nature. Like that's the organism, the organization is already literally it already has organs, right? Like if someone came in like a scientist, like I'm actually smarter than your body, your heart should go here. Like, they're not smarter than nature. They fucked up, and you fucked up co-creating that circumstance, letting you put your heart in your foot because you decided that they were smarter than the natural body that was already working up to this point. And that's really what it feels like when people are letting themselves get convinced by this government to get shot.
I was just gonna say that. That's exactly what it is. That you need this, you are sick, you're no good, I know better than you. And people acquiesced and said, okay.
Right. So let us clog up your arteries and let us give you an inflamed heart because we're putting a bunch of heavy metals and extra garbage into your bloodstream. Like the FDA has allowed so many heavy metals in baby food for centuries. Like it's been over a century. It's been a solid century since they made this new baby food thing. And they started acting like they're making it organic. But really only now people are realizing that it's full of heavy metals. And it's just basically this repeated cycle of ever since the Industrial Revolution, people have been eating foods that are full of carcinogens, full of like particles that lower their vibration, make them more reactive to the environment, and are not in harmony with the natural organisms and organelles that developed out of the water. So now we're constantly having these health problems because there's a clash between metal and water. Yeah. And like hella people just have metal in their body clashing with the water in their body. But we're constantly eating heavy metal. It's in all of our baby food. Like it's in everything. It's crazy. Like I promise this is where most neurodegenerative disorders are coming from. Like people's like neurons not being able to work. I promise it's from this. Like it's from people consuming heavy metals in their baby food growing up, and the FDA not giving a fuck because this is how they're using the caduceus of Hermes Trismegistus to harness your energy and turn it into money on the medical system. One of the many ways.
Wow, very, very true. I mean, and not only that, not only is it in the baby foods, but it's also while you're giving babies these shots when they're born. And of course, in these shots, they have metals in them as well. And their immune system isn't even developed at this point. You know, I'm very thankful for my parents, the fact that I was born at home. I don't have a birth certificate, you know, and I didn't get any of those shots. You know, I had a tuberculosis shot one time in my life. But other than that, man, I didn't have any needles put inside of me.
Nice.
And I think it's important that people really start to ask these questions and really start to look at things because we've been so effectively, you know, brainwashed, and it's very unfortunate. Very unfortunate. Very, very,
extremely unfortunate. Hopefully, it's supposed to make us stronger in the long run. Here's something that like dazzles me. How do people support the media or just support this government? Or really, here's what it is, right? Like people will get these injections and think that they need 4 boosters after 4 shots because this system that's putting them in a state of fear is saying that this is for their health. What I'm confused about is how you can look at the history of this system and see how it has only made money off of hurting people. And then to bring that to a grounded level, this is the same government that advertised that cigarettes and soda and candy are all healthy for children, right? Like the same exact system that's been advertising that Coke and cocaine and crack and candy, all the C's should be consumed by your children. Like this is all they see on commercials, just more C energy on the channels. It's everything. They just want to control your consciousness with all the crack in candy. And they get us right from childhood. And like, that's like, it's so nefarious watching these cartoons and how they use cartoons to sell candy and sell drugs. And they train us to be drug addicts. But then somehow the war on drugs is them arresting Black people for enjoying the plants that they're stealing from us and turning into the crack that they want to get kids addicted on and make more money off of. Like, oh yeah, sugar cane, that's fine, but let's turn it into refined sugar. Let's put all these heavy metal chemicals. Let's make it through the industry. Now it's full of a bunch of shit that no one can pronounce. And then we can sell it and we're right. We're white people. You be Black people, you're going to consume our creations. You're going to create our health problems, and then you're going to build our industry because our hospitals don't exist if there aren't sick people. And we need you to be just as sick as we feel. So please eat the food and please eat the media that we create out of our feelings. Eating this media my whole life makes me feel bad.
You know, everything that you said could be summed up in one thing. You know, judge a tree by the fruit that it bears.
Right.
And from the tree of the media, or the tree of, you know, the medical system, the government, or of any one of these institutions that we are speaking about, the fruit that comes off of it is rotten every single time. Every single time. On
stolen land. They need to steal land just to plant trees with rotten fruit. And they water it with blood of the people that from the land that they stole. I wish I was joking.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I wish I was joking. This just like subconsciously real because that's exactly the history of America. Now you get blood on the leaves.
I remember watching a commercial. It was in black and white. This was off of TikTok, and it was about cigarettes. And it was a doctor having a conversation with another doctor. And they said, "What type of cigarettes do you smoke?" And he was like, I smoke, I think it was Camel. I smoke Camel. Camels are the best cigarettes, and every doctor smokes Camels. And then they said Camels, and then, you know, I could just see the brainwashing that was taking place in there. And then later on, I watched another commercial, and the commercial talked about how it was good for women to smoke cigarettes while they were pregnant, because because the children come out smaller, and it makes it easier for the women to give birth. And then I remember the woman saying, "Oh, okay, like now I don't have to have too much pain." You know, and this is the same tree that we are talking about that's telling you to drink milk. Milk does your body good. That's telling you all kinds of cereal that has metal particles in them
Uh-huh.
to immerse your body with all kinds of ice creams and sugars and all types of other
Right.
stuff that
Eat all
are
the tortured
food.
meat that's been fed plastic its whole life.
Exactly, and or it's been given what do you call it? Titanium titanium nitride, I believe the name of it is, which
Oh.
pretty much makes the food look like it is healthy and it's full and vibrant, but it's just a chemical that gives it the appearance that it's actually healthy when it isn't.
Mm,
There's so many additives that are just allowed in our food and even in our water, and
right.
that's a whole different topic.
Right.
And all people need to do is look at the tree. Look at the tree that they're eating from. And most people aren't doing that. Most people are eating the rotten fruit, but it's disguised as something else. And they don't understand why when they get around the age of 30, why when they get the age around of 40, they can't do anything. They can't do a handstand. They can't run, 5 miles. They can't do
Mm,
push-ups, and their stomach is or their gut is as big as their butt, because they have fallen for the trickery of the system, and the they lack the I won't say the intelligence, but
I
they
know,
choose
right?
not to, they choose not to be humble, and this is why we talked about the three poisons, which is arrogance, disobedience, and ignorance. Because
Mm-hmm.
people, especially Americans, we are so arrogant, which just means to overly express one's importance. We
Mm-hmm.
think that our bodies, just because we are American and we have a red, white, and blue flag, that our bodies are more important than somebody in China or somebody in Africa or somebody in India,
Right.
just because of we are Americans. We have been fed this lie, and we consumed it for so long that we believe it and that we would actually die for it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can really, really open your eyes, or just open your eye, your third eye, you would see that we are living in one gigantic lie, or one gigantic dream, or one gigantic realm.
Realm.
Yes.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yeah, very fire. All perpetrated by media. And this is where we get my series, Predictive Programming. It is basically everything. Like when we think about how we have grown up learning this language, but then we don't know how to speak the language if we don't learn it through stories, movies, and other books and forms of media, then you can actually get a grasp on how your consciousness has straight up been molded by all of the media that you've consumed in the language that you've been taught to speak.
Right.
So all the ways in which people like can use this language to teach you how to socialize and connect and conduct business in the realm that you find yourself existing in, like this gets programmed into your subconscious so that you consciously play it out without even really thinking about it. And then this is how they normalize the genocide of indigenous people, or they normalize rape culture, or they normalize violence, really. Like, and that's like what we can super land on. Like when we look at Marvel movies, I'm astounded. Let's talk about this in media. I'm astounded that Marvel is so violent. I'm just
Mm.
astounded in the media in general that children are allowed to watch people get blown up and watch them get their heads cut off and watch blood pour out of their bodies, but you can't see a titty on screen. Come
I
on, you
have
can't show me a nipple. You can't show me a little nip slip, but I can see three
little
people
peek,
get
little peek.
shot up. Right. I
I
can
this
watch
this
people
has
get demolished by bullets. Like they can
this
just
has
like get evaporated into a viscera, like clouds of blood by bullets, and that'll be rated PG-13 because it
this
didn't happen too many times.
it's 100% absolutely true, and I've been seeing this since I was young, because we weren't allowed to watch that much TV. But even back with Tom and Jerry, like it was comical to drop an
Yo,
anvil on somebody, to blow somebody up,
and you're
to
supposed to laugh at that
you're supposed to laugh at it.
constantly,
Yeah,
subconsciously. And
yeah.
that's what I hate this shit about comedy. We're just going hard on media, fine. Like, cause this is like now jumping to comedy. The one main thing I really hate about comedians is how they teach people to hate themselves by
Mm,
making them laugh at the most self-deprecating jokes.
mm,
Like it's like
mm.
the most self-deprecating jokes where like because I would hate that in person. Like I'm very just subconsciously, I learned about myself this lifetime. I had to. So like one
Yes.
of my big problems in college dealing with people like socializing was how like people would seem cool, but then they would constantly show that they hate themselves by trying to joke about all their insecurities. But then
Mm,
once they get you to laugh about their insecurity, you're giving them permission to hate themselves. And then you're saying that hating yourself is actually more relatable than if you handled that insecurity, loved yourself, and then made other jokes.
This is true.
You know, like,
I mean, jokes can be funny, right? Why did the girl mushroom like the guy mushroom? Because he was a fun guy.
He was
right?
a fun guy.
I know that's like a dad joke, but you know, you have a really valid point right there. I mean, everything in the media.
What we joke about gets permission.
Say it again?
Like, what we joke about gets permission. Like, if you laugh at a joke, you basically give permission for more of that behavior.
Absolutely. And you know, I've always said this, you know, especially when I was a manager at many corporations, is that we teach people how to treat us. If I can make a joke about you and you laugh about it and you don't say, hey, listen, I don't like that, don't do it again, and you just let it slide and people laugh about it, then what happens is that now I believe that I can talk to you like that, and that becomes your reality.
A pattern.
And we teach people how to treat us. So, you know, we don't need to do anything, but you are in control of your reality. This is important to remember. You are in control of your reality, and you are constantly creating it, either actively or passively. But it's up to you. It's up to you as the individual to decide what type of reality you want to live in. I mean, you was talking about the violence in the cartoons, but this goes far, man. And it seems like it's the same story being played over and over again. You have the superhero, you have the villain, the story's a little bit different, the characters are different, but it's the same story over and over and over again, from video games to movies to Cinderella to whatever, man. It's the same thing. And Tony Robbins, what did he say? Repetition is the mother of skill. You do something over and over again, you know, you're going to be good at that. You're gonna program yourself. When Bruce Lipton was talking about give me a child from the age of 1 through 7, and I will show you the man. The only way to get out of that program of the Theta system. I think I'm saying it right. Theta, Theta. The only way to
Theta. I think people say it differently, like data and data.
Okay.
So as long as people know it, they get it.
But the only way to get out, of that system is by repetition. You have to constantly, you know, before you go to sleep and when you wake up, and constantly repeat to yourself who you really are in order to get out of that brainwashing program. Yeah. So, you know, this media, right? The media is also the movies. The media is also the video games. All of these things are the media. It's just not Fox News or NBC or CNN. It just goes on and on and on and on. That's why you have to create your environment. There was a yogi by the name of, I don't know if I have his book. His name was Yogananda. Really, really popular. Steve Jobs loved him. And when Steve Jobs passed away, he gave everybody a copy of the autobiography of a yogi. I don't have the book on me right now, but he was popular in the 1920s. And one thing that Yogananda said is that he said that environment is more powerful than willpower, meaning that your environment is more powerful than willpower. I don't care if you're an ice cube. If you're an ice cube, but if you get put in an oven, eventually you're going to become steam or you're going to become water or whatever. Right? The environment is extremely powerful.
You can have all the willpower in the universe.
Yes.
Doesn't matter in that environment.
Yes. And this is why you need to create your own environment. You need
to,
because if you don't know, and then you won't do it. But if you know, then you can easily do it. You can create a mental, you know, when, like if you listen to Wayne when he was speaking, the way that he protects himself, because he talks about this, is he creates a mental environment inside of his head.
Absolutely. Oh, I do the same thing. He sounds.
What you gotta do.
I'm excited to watch it. That is all you have to do. Let's break that down real quick. That's fantastic. Shout out you, Wayne. Creating a mental environment that protects your space is basically you projecting out your imagination in a way that makes you lighter than everything you can see. So, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, when you use your imagination, you're in a magic nation. Your imagination is key. This is why Einstein said your imagination is more powerful than knowledge.
Absolutely. So there it is, right? Because your imagination imagines knowledge before that knowledge is manifested. So it's important for everyone to know that all knowledge was made up out of someone's imagination, which is why there's always an origin point for an idea. You know me as symmetry. So I've created many ideas through many lifetimes. That's all an expression of my imagination. So even when I'm in a totally different reality, speaking a different language, I'm still aware of how everything I've created connects with the environment and the universe that I have been co-manifesting with all the spirits that I've built families with. And then this is the whole point of building life with people so that you can hold each other accountable. Now, that's like the whole beauty of relationships, honestly, is to like hold each other accountable. And that's the whole point of knowing that you're relating with people based on how you imagine yourself. Everything that allows you to connect with someone is based from your ego. This is why you can't run from your ego. Your ego is you as a spirit experiencing your awareness. And when you want to be aware of your imagination, you can really only see other people based on how you connect with your imagination, which is why projections perception, right? Like you can talk to anyone in any religion, you know you're not a part of those religions, but those religions are going to believe that you are a part of them because they're projecting their imagination onto you. And then that plays out in the esoteric realm as fire. Overall, that's why we get to nature before this language and religion and shit. Now we're talking about how our minds communicate. When someone's projecting onto you religious wise, like, hey, you are a son of my God, and you never heard of that God before, they literally have to teach you their knowledge. But to them, their knowledge is complete reality. But to you, you can be like, oh, that's an expression of your imagination, or not even your imagination, but the imagination of the people who made your religion. So now you would have to be a more wise spirit to see how all these ideas are connected and to like learn your place in them and know thyself, of course. Because when you know thyself and you know how your imagination has manifested into the universe up to this point, which is all information that you only have in your soul. No one can tell you about the imaginations that you've imagined from the past. All right, that's all in your soul. So you do have to go on psychedelic trips and fast, both these things together, ideally, to get into that energy. But once you can do that, you get to make your imagination make more sense, right? Because no matter what, we're imagining things, I'm pretty sure, right?
Absolutely. All
right?
the time.
Yeah. Isn't that like, that's why all this media matters. Like all this media like is to capture our imagination. So now people are like, oh, I can't imagine anything. I imagine what's relatable. So it's all about like you knowing on a spiritual level, this basic Hermetic Zoroastrian somatic alchemy of how space creates fire, creates water, creates air, creates earth. That becomes blood. You use that blood to make a body. That body allows you to be conscious. That consciousness creates the universe. And now you're always going to realize who you are based on how you use your consciousness to expand the universe.
Just like that.
Just like that. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And then you create your own heaven. And then from there, it's just compound interest, baby.
People lie, but numbers don't.
And now we can see way more in the energy where Jonathan is when he's saying that, and it's true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, big facts. So this is everything. Like this is just really important that we address how powerful your imagination is, because that's the only reason the media matters. You're always connecting with spaces outside of yourself based on how your imaginations can resonate. So that's the idea of like a twin flame. Like when you feel like you found your twin flame, that's because both of you and the spirit that you met or see, your imaginations are vibrating at such a close frequency. It's almost like they could be one fire. And that's where we get soulmates coming out of like, oh, we both support the same fire. So if we both support the same imagination, then we can both connect no matter how we feel. And then that's where we get the real meaning of marriage before they stole it from Egypt and everything. Like the actual esoteric Zoroastrian meaning of marriage. Like we're upholding the same God because we both support the same imagination. And so now even when we hate each other, because we both agree to support this imagination, we're married. And that's like real marriage before the government was like, let's make money off this energy.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you, and I just want to add this to the conversation that
absolutely,
because we're still on media. When people
imagination media,
when people think about the media, right, and your imagination, and how did the government so successfully get people to do what they wanted them to do? How does the dog, the sheepdog, the sheep shepherd, whatever it's called, gather hundreds of sheep to get them to go in the direction that they want to go?
Right.
Well, what they do is they use fear. Now there's a chart, and I forget the guy's name that invented this chart, But the lower frequencies.
So now you got the sheepdogs.
Exactly. Well, I mean, so based on this
Go
chart, the
ahead.
lower frequencies is you got grief, you got
Mm-hmm.
shame,
Mm-hmm.
you got fear. What are the other? You have apathy, and you have desire. I think those are like the 5 lowest ones. I might be off with one of them. There's a frequency chart. So
Yeah.
the government puts people in those stakes, and then it can be controlled easily. I might have said this earlier, but there are 4 big fears that people are afraid of. It's fear of, the biggest one is dying, fear of dying, right? So if you don't get this injection, you're gonna die. Okay, you can control people that way. The other fear
If
is,
you don't work a job, you're gonna die.
well, and that ties into the other one. The other one is fear of poverty, right? Or fear of being poor, right? So if you don't get this job, how am I going to pay my bills? I'm going to be out on the streets. I got family. I got responsibilities, right? Another one is fear of ill health, right? If you don't want to get this, then you better get this, right? And then the last one is fear of not being included, fear of being the oddball, being the black sheep, right? Not being that white sheep that's being controlled by the rest. So, and you've seen people, right, when it came to this injection, that they were controlled by all of these.
Yeah.
And even, going back to normal, right? Because what is the definition of normal? Normal means to
I know a
conform.
few people that were super down knowing that it was unhealthy and that the injection was not good for them. But because they fell into that black sheep, being scared of being ostracized by their peers, they had to do it. And now they're like stuck rationalizing to themselves every day why it was somehow okay, because even though they knew it was unhealthy, they had to connect with the people that were telling them to kill themselves in this fashion.
It doesn't
It's
make
hard.
any sense.
Yeah, we're deep in hell.
They go, oh, my family, oh, my friends, oh,
Deep
I had
hell.
to do it, right? I mean, because people want to be normal. And what's the definition of normal? The definition of normal means to conform. It literally means to conform if you look it up in a dictionary. So people, and like for me, right, like growing up being a vegetarian, growing up not having a religion, growing up being homeschooled, growing up not being included in a lot of these institutions that most people are included in, I already have, my skin is as thick as an elephant, maybe 5 elephants. Like, there's not much of anything that I really give a F about. Like, it's whatever, man. I'm going to live my life the way that I want to live it, how I want to live it, when I want to live it. And if you don't like it, then whatever. I don't care.
Right. You're not a part of my life.
You're not part of it. Yeah,
Live
but
your
most,
life.
but most people is that they're afraid if they aren't included. What happens if he doesn't like me? What happens if she doesn't like me? I want to keep up with the Jones, and that's a mind trap, and that's how the media effectively controls people because of their fears. So, in order for people to escape this trap of being controlled by the media, right, one of the 7 arms, you must get over your fear. And how do you get over your fear? The opposite of fear is courage. It means to face something even if you're afraid. It means to do it even if your voice is shaking and your hands are trembling, to do it anyway. And eventually you will realize that 95% of the things that you were afraid of never come to pass. And this has been statistically proven. So
Big facts.
Yeah,
big facts.
It just takes a lot of courage, a lot of courage. But
it does.
You can do it. You can do it. And you have a support group. Right.
And that's where, to really hit on this before we get into the next segment, which will be about the monetary system and how the media makes money off of your mind.
Dollar bill, y'all.
Dollar bills, baby. This is everything that Jonathan is talking about when we're connecting how the media manipulates your mind with fear, and then they make money off of that. And it's endless. Like, this is why they created religion the way that the New World Order has used it to reset our timeline, so we actually think we're in year 2022. Like, right, because that's all based on in our year Jesus Christ. Like, the whole sacrifice of Jesus was to reset time and say, hey, we are the New World Order. We rule out of fear. You are fundamentally going to be scared of being sacrificed to the government, and this is why you will worship God. And now it's somehow relatable and normal for everyone to be God fearing. Like, you're supposed to actually fear God. That's somehow respectable. That's somehow spiritual. That's somehow healthy.
God is all loving. God is my father, but I'm a God fearing person and I fear God. and I better be afraid. It doesn't make
Right.
sense.
Like I need to serve
it
him
contradicts itself.
and do everything he says, or else he's gonna punish me. Like you're talking to yourself. I'm watching you fight yourself, and now I'm watching 1 million gods, quote unquote, all fight themselves because they're stuck in a language that they don't understand, basically. And then this language, like the Bible, first media, really, because almost all this media that you're talking about pushes the same story. They're Bible stories. Like they're just constantly like pulling out stories from the Bible and turning it into like different characters and then selling it as Marvel comics or selling it as superhero movies or selling it as a romance movie or just all these Hollywood movies are basically remixed Bible stories. And just like remix stories that they stole from indigenous populations that they saw people were already relating on. So they want to make money out of that vibration, but they whitewash everything. And we're not going to get into whitewashing with media, right? Like we probably don't have to. That's a given. Right? Like the fact that Jesus is white when we know that he would have been black, of course, they're going to whitewash Egyptians in Gods of Egypt.
It's ridiculous, man.
Of course, it's the point. The point, right? The whole point of the media, it really seems, as we're wrapping up here, the point of the media is to whitewash indigenous people. So, right? Like this is basically, do you believe in aliens, Jonathan?
Well, there are people from another country that we would call an alien. See, and this is the thing about language, right? Somebody comes over from Mexico, oh, he's an alien. But I know exactly what you're saying, right? And I wouldn't say I believe, I would say that I know that there are beings from other places or whatnot.
Absolutely.
Just because life is everywhere.
Life is everywhere. Yeah.
You're made up of, 50, 60, 100 trillion cells, and they are defecating, reproducing, and eating.
There it is. There it is. And especially on this channel, we know that spirituality actually creates physical reality. So if you can see a structure, it's because life created that structure to stabilize how it moves through space. This is why life is always bigger than the body that you're using to experience it, right? Like it's always about the relationship your space has with spaces outside of itself, but you always know that your space is separate from other spaces. That's why you have a soul that allows you to connect through bodies. And then we get all of this throughout nature and everything. So just straight up, this media is very Martian. Like when we look at how obsessed it is with violence, and then we see that the third day of the week is Mars Day, then the fourth day is Mercury Day, it's because the third day is supposed to be what you're aware of. And they want all humans to communicate like Martians, which is chaotic, violent, aggressive, and basically everything we can see in Martian energy in general. So we're about to get into how the media uses Martian manipulation to train you to uphold money. Because money doesn't matter without Martians stealing ideas from Mercury and then making you fearful of numbers. It's sad. Life isn't supposed to be this way. We'll be right back.